Thanks for tuning in for your parkerweather.info October 26, 2010 weather update. Well, it looks as if, we talked about this the other day, and it looks as if one of the strongest non-tropical storms in terms of pressure has descended upon the upper Midwest and is causing some pretty intense weather across the central and eastern portions of the United States. High wind warnings and watches, along with heavy snow watches and warnings and freeze warnings up in Minnesota and North Dakota. And then if you will notice, there is a tornado watch stretching from the banks of Lake Erie all the way through Pennsylvania, hugging the western edge of the Appalachian Mountains, all the way down into Alabama and Mississippi. Now that entire line was off shifted to the west a little bit as Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky all got blasted today with heavy winds, hail, and some tornadoes, thanks to this mid-latitude cyclone. Well, some of the models, and these are a couple of the models from AccuWeather, predicted that this would be one of the strongest storms to ever descend upon it. This is the 36-hour NAM, and it was predicting a 28.4 inches of mercury, which is about 968 millibars. And then this is the 33-hour GFS, predicting about 958 millibars, so 28.3 inches of mercury. Now, this is the Duluth, Minnesota airport, and notice the starting time at the bottom left is 2 a.m., and then it goes all the way from 1 p.m. today. So at 2 a.m., they were at 982 millibars, 976, 971, and they continued to drop steadily all the way down to their 1 p.m. Millibar SLP of 961 millibars, which ended up being a record for Duluth, which we'll talk about in a second. And then Virginia, Minnesota airport, pretty much the exact same thing happened as that low tracked over. Started this morning at 7 a.m. at 970 millibars, and then by 1 p.m. had dropped almost 8 shy of almost 20 millibars, as at 1 p.m. They also broke a record. So here are a couple of the broken pressure records. Duluth, Minnesota, the previous record was 28.48 inches of mercury in 1998, and then the new record was set today with 28.37 inches of mercury. And then International Falls, which is way up there in northern Minnesota, previous record of 28.70 in 98, and then 28.27, so almost a 50 inches of mercury degree difference between the two storms right there. Well, here's our current surface map, and you can see the massive surface low that is in northern Minnesota causing rain and snow in that area, and then the squall line that is continuing to move across Indiana into Ohio, and then a lot of storms out ahead of the cold front in the southeast starting to initiate. Well, it actually was kind of a perfect setup for this kind of severe weather. If you'll notice, that jet maximum that is stretched from southern Missouri into Illinois and up into Wisconsin. And if we sort of cut that into portions, we always look at the right rear and the front left for our most uplift. And it looks like those are the areas the squall line got its act together today. And then if we go ahead and look at 500 millibars, that low that's in southern Minnesota had a lot of positive vorticity advection, and it left a lot of uplift in the entire area pretty much that I'm circling. When you're looking at 500 millibars, you want to look out ahead to see where the vorticity is being advected to, and that's where you get a lot of your spin and your uplifting your atmosphere. Well, this is an image of the Decatur, Alabama webcam that's on top of their old post office. And if we're looking at this circular area right here, and that was a rotating wall cloud along with this storm right here. Now that webcam is right here where these two highways intersect in downtown Decatur, and it was looking north towards this region. And basically you were looking inside this little notch right here as that rotating wall cloud actually did produce a tornado. And then I know you can't see it very well, but it's right around in this area as it moved northeast at 40 miles an hour through Decatur, Alabama. So here's some of the storm reports already for today. The majority of them are heavy wind reports, and because it was a squall line, you're going to see a lot more wind reports and a lot more tornado reports than with hail reports. So wind reports stretching all the way from northern Indiana through the entire state into Kentucky, and then same goes for a couple tornado reports in Illinois, Indiana, but for the most part it was just heavy wind reports. So one thing we need to understand in terms of using models for initialization for model analysis, we need to look at where the current storm is and where the models are saying the storm should be. And that's how you need to use models for your forecasting through the rest of the event. So do we use the GFS, the NAM, the RUC, the rapid update, the WRF, the ADA? What model are we going to use? Well, here's our current loop of the water vapor, and this is a good idea to see where your upper level low is going to be. And then we will also take a look at our surface low along with, by looking at the radar, you can see that heavy rotation along with this storm, and this is the Duluth, Minnesota radar just north. So it's pretty good agreement that the surface low and upper level low are located in the northeastern portion of Minnesota. So let's go ahead and look at a couple models and see where they're initializing that upper level low at. Well, here's the ADA analysis, and this is valid for the current time period, and it has that low hugging the North Dakota, South Dakota, and Missouri line. And we are looking for that low, though, to be right around this area, not way back here. So the ADA is a little bit slow in its analysis. Same goes for the GFS. We're looking for that low to be up here, and it's pretty much retrograding it back a little bit to the west. Now it looks like the RUC, the rapid update cycle, has the low just a little bit south, but pretty much where we expected the low to be, right around northeastern tip of Minnesota. So we're going to go ahead and trust that the RUC, and it usually does when you're dealing with severe weather, has a pretty good idea of what is going on. So this is the 9-hour RUC for 3Z, so it's valid for 10 o'clock as we go into 10 o'clock tonight, and it is currently 6:40 on the East Coast. Basically, this is our 2-meter dew point temperature, and it still has a lot of moisture, a lot of heavy, high dew points in the southeastern United States, stretching all the way up into Pennsylvania, New York. But notice that deep moisture in the southeast. There's definitely plenty of moisture in place for some severe storms. And we're also going to go ahead and look at the exact same time period, 10 p.m. tonight, the surface CAPE. And then again, CAPE is the convective available potential energy, and it's measured in joules per kilogram. And it looks like this small little portion right here has about 1,000, and we're looking for anywhere from about 750 to 1,000 is enough to produce some pretty dangerous storms. And then if you noticed off in the Gulf of Mexico, once you get to the areas of 3,000, now don't expect storms to initiate over there, but relatively speaking, once you get storms in areas of 3,000, you're talking about some pretty heavy storms. So it looks like there is enough CAPE in the area to produce some storms. Now this is SIN. This is our convective inhibition. So this is basically the opposite of CAPE. It's the anti-CAPE, if you will. And it prevents upward air from rising, as opposed to CAPE, which is your instability. This is your, basically, I guess you could call it your uninstability. And it looks like there's a little pocket of neutral stability, but a lot of this is going to be slowly downgraded as that front and that forcing moves into that area. It looks like there's going to be plenty of energy that's going to overcome a lot of this SIN in the area. And then finally, this is our 0 to 3 kilometer storm relative helicity. And the storm relative helicity is the ability for an air column to turn itself on its side and produce a tornado or produce a mesocyclone. And it looks like North Georgia is getting some pretty high numbers. We're basically looking for anything above 200, and the numbers are agreeing with that in North Georgia and Alabama. So there's definitely the setup and the position for some pretty dangerous storms as we go into this evening. Now this is the RUC, and this is what is known as a program called BuffKit. And BuffKit can initialize pretty well upper air data, and it's really helpful with snow forecasting, but it also can be pretty useful for your severe weather. Now this red line is your CAPE, and then this blue line is your storm relative helicity, and this white line is the current time period. So basically it is right now it's 6:42, and then we're looking for about this area right around in here. Is going to be 10 o'clock tonight, and we are looking at CAPE values around 400 to 500, almost to 500 in this area, and then storm relative helicity 250 to 300. So I've seen plenty of storms become very dangerous and very powerful, even though there's not a lot of CAPE in the atmosphere. When you have really high storm relative helicity values, you can get some pretty strong storms in the entire area. So it looks like the Georgia area is going, the Georgia region is going to see some pretty heavy, dangerous storms. The Atlanta area is probably going to stay under tornado watch and possibly some tornado warnings as we go into this evening. But if you will notice on the current convective outlook, it looks like these orange lines are going to be Cape values, and it looks like they're using a different model, and they're getting some higher numbers, 2,000 in South Georgia, the 1,500 line bulging up into the Atlanta area, and then 1,000 area bulging up into portions of North Georgia as you get up into Rome, Georgia, and in those North Georgia mountains. So be sure to continue logging back to the blog. We're going to do a live weathercast as storms get intense through Georgia tonight, so log into the website. If you miss it, we'll go ahead and post it onto YouTube, and you can watch that as we dissect a lot of the storms that are going to be flying through the area tonight. Thanks a lot, and be sure to join us for our live weathercast tonight at parkerweather.info, and then click on the blogger link at the very top. Thanks a lot, and have a great evening.